you later. Bye.
No whining. No whining.
Oh, everything is running very slowly today.
Including me.
Here we go.
Come here.
Later.
All right. Edit video. All right, I'm just fixing everything to go live, so bear with me as the internet wants to be slow today.
Don't quit.
Ooh. Playlist weekly Bible study. All right. Good morning.
Morning.
Let's get started with prayer. Holy Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for this time together. We thank you for the opportunity to learn more about ourselves, one another, and you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I don't know if y'all heard that, but Alexa, I'm not talking to you, decided to participate in the prayer this morning, which was a little bit distracting.
I just moved my house phone, or it would have been reminding all of us that I need to charge the battery.
Happens.
It's bad when your electronics remind you of stuff.
So we have moved into the 16th chapter of Proverbs, and I learned something based on the commentary that I was using in the last over the last 15 weeks, I guess, is that there is a shift when it comes to Proverbs in 16. It's a different format. Some say it's a different installation, a different writer, but you'll notice a huge difference in the way that these Proverbs are written as compared to the ones that were in 10 to 15. And if you remember, there was a big difference that happened in 9 as well. Now, part of the shift that you'll notice, especially here in the first part, is it started in 15 with, there was a lot of talk of the Lord. Some say that this is like the theological part of Proverbs, but the Lord talk carries over into the first 9 verses of 16 as well. And so let's go ahead and move to those 9 verses, as I will share the screen. So you'll see that YHWH. That is called what's known as the Tetragrammaton. In your Bible, have you ever noticed when Lord is in all caps, especially in the Old Testament? When that happens, in the original Hebrew, what was written was YHWH. It's pronounced Yahweh when you add in the vowels, but Jews would never, ever utter that word. And so when they would come across this in Hebrew, they would say Lord. They would never say Yahweh, because, you know, you would never misuse the name of the Lord. And so for them, it was even uttering the name of the Lord. And so this is the Yahweh sayings. But in our text, it will say Lord on all of them. But that actually holds not just to Proverbs, but all of the Old Testament. So here we go. The plans of the mind belong to mortals, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All one's ways may be pure in one's own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. All those who are arrogant are an abomination to the Lord. Be assured they will not go unpunished. By loyalty and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, and by the fear of the Lord, one avoids evil. When the ways of the people please the Lord, he causes even their enemies to be at peace with them. Better is a little with righteousness than large income with injustice. The human mind plans the way, but the Lord directs the steps. Okay, read through those, and we'll do like last week. You pick your favorites or the ones that you have questions about, and we'll talk about it. It's not y'all's house, is it, Margaret? They're not headed to y'all, are they? Couldn't tell which way they were going.
They passed us by. We're always glad when they pass on by. But Sophie's out there intoning with them.
Get right with them.
Stephen, have you gone to sleep?
So y'all are done. Okay. So what
10
are your
minutes
favorite? What's that?
10
What'd you say?
minutes ago.
Oh,
We were through 10 minutes ago.
well, since we haven't been in here for quite 10 minutes, I'll assume that was like exaggeration. But so what are the verses that stood out to you here?
Well, verse 2 to me seems to say that we can justify in our own minds whatever we want to do to get to what we want to get to, but the Lord weighs our ulterior motives.
Yes. Yeah, I like that.
I started that one too, Hugh.
It says here that human assessments are limited and often distorted. The capacity for self-deception comes through an image of one's own ways of being innocent in one's own eyes. Motives are weighed, presumably by God. The shift in metaphor reminds the reader of the famous phrase, weighed in the balances and found wanting, from Daniel 5. Did y'all notice the difference in the way that these proverbs were written, though?
Definitely.
Whereas the last ones in the last 6 chapters were these people, the good are this, the bad are this, the wise are this, the foolish are this. And these don't have that. These are just all basically self-contained, and synonymous with one another. So what other are your favorite ones, or question marks?
I like number 5. All those who are arrogant are an abomination to the Lord. Be assured they will not go unpunished.
Kind of gratifying, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a lot farther to fall when you're on top. What else?
I had a couple. I thought I liked 3, but I thought 4 sort of went with it. Because, commit to the Lord whatever you do and your plans will succeed. The Lord works out everything for his own ends. Because, when I was reading, thinking that when we do commit what we do to the Lord, saying that our plans will succeed doesn't mean that they will always necessarily turn out exactly the way we planned, because God has his own interpretation of our plans.
Yes, I like that. God's plans always work out. That doesn't mean they're your plans.
That's right. They may actually help our plans succeed, but he knows more about what we really ought to be planning and what's really what we need or what's good for us than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of reminds us of unanswered prayers, that Garth Brooks song.
Right.
If y'all have ever heard that, where he talks about one of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Have y'all all heard that song?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what it's about, he's at a, I guess like a homecoming dance or a class reunion, and he remembers and he sees his old high school flame, and he sees his wife and thinks of his kids and stuff, and he's, glad that God didn't answer that prayer. Anything else from those verses?
Yeah, I like verse 6. Through
Yes.
love and faithfulness, sin is atoned for. Through fear of the Lord, a man avoids evil.
Yeah, that was the one I first thought of.
We can use a lot of that in this world, this day and time.
Agreed. And again, we hear that fear of the Lord that comes out.
And I liked verse 8.
8.
Better is a little with righteousness than a large income with injustice. In other words, if you're treating other people unfairly to get your wealth, that's not good.
Yeah. It's better to not have much and have good wealth than lots of wealth poorly. And in fact, I believe it was last week that there was one very similar to that.
Yeah, there was.
Again, repetition is the key to learning. Anything else in those? All right. Now we're going to move on to the next section there. 10 through 15, I believe. Yep. And they are the king sayings. The first of the royal proverbs is followed by Yahweh saying, just as one overlaps the pieces of cloth as sewn at the seam, So this section inserts one of the royal proverbs before concluding the series of Yahweh sayings in verse 1 to 11. Likewise, a Yahweh saying stands in the section of royal sayings. The overlap reflects a biblical view that kings discharge their duties as appointed representatives of God's rule on earth. So keep that in mind. And remember also, Solomon, who is accredited for writing this, king. Inspired decisions are on the lips of a king. His mouth does not sin in judgment. Honest balances and scale are the Lord's. All the weights in the bag are his work. It is an abomination to kings to do evil, for the throne is established by righteousness. Righteous lips are the delight of a king, and he loves those who speak what is right. A king's wrath is a messenger of death, and whoever is wise will appease it. In the light of a king's face there is life, and his favor is like the clouds that bring spring rain. All right, read through those and pick out your favorites or the ones you have questions about, and we will talk about those. All right. So what you got there? Do we not like these?
Oh, yeah, we do. I was pondering several of them. Actually, the first one, after you said that Solomon being the author, verse 10, I thought was meaningful because in that way, he's almost speaking of himself, and you can sort of get a feel for what he values. As it says, the lips of a king speak as an oracle, which means people listen to him, obviously. And his mouth should not betray justice. And, you know, we all have heard and have read examples of the wisdom of Solomon, that he did try to be just. And so I thought that verse sort of pointed to the fact of his value for justice. And knowing that he had a responsibility because people were listening to what he said.
Well, and I you know, as I hear these, I mean, if these were teachings to raise up young Jewish boys, you got to think that some of these might be pointed to his own children.
Yeah, very true.
You know, you kind of get the picture of Mustafa and Simba in Lion King, where he's teaching his son that one day all this is going to be yours. And so he's talking about the king. You know, this is in some of these, this is what a king does.
Verse 11 also goes with that.
Yes. And again, we go to those weights and balances that they've talked about people cheating. And what it says here is that ultimately God's got the weights.
Right.
Um, in 12, it kind of is interesting. But it says here that the king and the Lord are intertwined, basically, as we're seeing the king as God's representative on earth for them. The assumption of a good and holy king. In some ways, you also see this as how Roman Catholics view the Pope. Going back to verse 10, inspired decisions of the least of the king, his mouth does not sin in judgment. Like when a pope speaks ex cathedra, it's considered to be an infallible word, that there is no fallacy. And when, not every time a pope speaks, but when a pope makes a judgment, there is no sin in that judgment, is sort of what they believe. But it's an abomination to kings to do evil, for the throne is established by righteousness. And I almost wonder, could that also be, it's an abomination for kings to do evil? Because the throne was established on righteousness.
Well, I thought of David and his little affair when I read that one.
Yeah.
How does it read in the Diane's or Hughes' Bible?
Which verse?
12.
12 says, kings detest wrongdoing, for a throne is established through righteousness.
Basically the same. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the word wise is understood. Wise kings.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't say that implicitly, but it's sort of, it's understood as the fact that these kings are wise because they are God's ambassadors.
Yeah. Well, and it's also that there's an implied should in there.
Right.
King should detest wrongdoing because the throne is established by righteousness.
It says that verses 14 and 15 work together to give poetic expressions to the king's power over life and death. The wise take this knowledge to heart and extend the analogy to their relationship with the heavenly king. Just as kings find pleasure in honesty, they also hate its opposite. The stimulus of a king's anger is not mentioned, only the result, death. So yeah, if you're teaching people to be wise, they probably ought to also kiss the king's rear end a little bit, because you ain't getting nowhere if the boss ain't happy. And it doesn't end well. That is a wise thing. Even if it's not a good king, it's a wise thing. But again, with the way that the royal aspect is back to back with the king, with the king and God are there back to back, it's also kind of equating the two in some ways. But then it talks, you got two verses that talk about how the king brings death, and then the last two talk about really how it brings life. And the light, in 15, because it says the light of the king's face, there's life, and his favor is like the clouds that brings the spring rain. It is kind of funny though, if a king's writing this and then starts talking about being arrogant. My face is like the spring rain. Yeah. So anything else in those verses? Okie doke. Let's move on to 16 to 19. Wisdom better than gold. How much better to get wisdom than gold? To get understanding is to be chosen rather than silver. The highway of the upright avoids evil. Those who guard their way preserve their lives. Pride goes before destruction, and the haughty spirit before a fall. It is better to be of a lowly spirit among the poor than to divide the spoil with the proud. Okay, read through those, and we will talk about those too. Alrighty. So what's your favorite ones in that one? Which ones do you have questions about?
The one that we've probably heard the most of those would be 18, or the one I've heard used a lot would be 18. That pride goes, well, typically pride goes before a fall is the way I've always, so it sort of
Me too.
two sections.
Yeah, it is interesting because we always hear pride goes before the fall.
Right.
And that's actually leaving out some words, but
Yeah.
The meaning's the same.
yeah, it is.
I had marked that one too.
When I came out of seminary, well, in the last 21 years, well, it started before this really. My father's generation of pastors wasn't as much, but the ones really before his generation were sort of hair pastor, where the pastors were up on this pedestal, and did no wrong. And, even if they did, nobody talked about it. What they said was how it was. Long about the 70s, really about the time they started questioning the presidents of the United States, they started questioning the pastors too, if you think about it. And so I always found by the time I came out, best not put yourself up on a pedestal. And if others do, try to climb down as quickly as possible. Because pride goes before the fall. And if you think you're way up there, it's a lot better to fall off a step stool than it is to fall off a ladder. And so, it's a long way down when you think you're all that. So what else? What else you seen this?
Well, I like verse 16. How much better to get wisdom than gold, to choose understanding rather than silver. Talking about riches and or wisdom. And if you had a choice, which would you choose, and how much better it would be to choose understanding?
You know, in all the genie movies or whatever, what's one of the first wishes?
Riches.
Riches.
Oh,
It ain't wisdom,
no, it isn't.
it's money.
Yes.
Money or power, and or power. But that's sort of, and here what Proverbs says, you got it all wrong. I mean, look, how many NFL players or pro boxers or pro athletes of any kind end up going bankrupt? Or lottery winners? They got more money than they know what to do with, and they go bankrupt and end up with nothing. And yet people like us that won't see in our lifetimes the amount of money that they'll see in 6 months, we don't go bankrupt. Well, we might for a couple of days, but then our bank account gets replenished. You know, I mean, they end up millions and millions of dollars in debt. And they had all the money more money than they knew what to do with. How does that happen? They got money, but they don't have wisdom.
Mhm.
And that's the key, is having wisdom as opposed to money. And the choice of having it. It's sort of like this. Being around high school kids and stuff that look at the jobs that they can get now. I mean, they have their options. I'm talking about ones that have options to either go to college or start working. I mean, not all kids have those options, but the ones that do, some kids pick to just go ahead and start working because they see this payday. And, you know, they look, well, I can make $15,000 a year doing that. Well, and to an 18-year-old, that sounds like a lot of money. But to a 25-year-old, that ain't gonna do nothing. You know, and it's that wisdom. I mean, if you can choose the wisdom, and then the money more than likely will come. I mean, unfortunately, you can be wise in some things and not in all things, but it's that wisdom. But he even goes on to say, it's better to be of a lowly spirit among the poor than to divide the spoil with the proud. Why do you think it says that? That's in 19.
Well, we've all heard pride goes before a fall, so you don't want to be around the proud.
Yeah. But not only that, you ever been around a family who goes into all out war when somebody dies because of inheritance?
Yes.
Because they think that they deserve this or that, right? And that's proud thinking.
Mhm.
And so if you're dividing your plunder with the proud are going to all think that they deserve more.
Mhm.
The division ain't going to be equal or equitable for that matter. It's just going to be ugly. because I deserve this and I deserve that. And that's what happens. It's better to be lowly of spirit around the poor than divide the riches with the plunder with the proud. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Even in today's world. It's amazing how these proverbs, how many of them are still so very applicable in today's world. And they always have been. And I guess that's one thing about wisdom. Wisdom doesn't age. Usually something that's wise is wise now and always will be. All right, let's move on to verses 20 to 24. Wisdom sweet on the lips. Those who are attentive to a matter will prosper, and happy are they who trust in the Lord. The wise of heart is called perceptive, and pleasant speech increases persuasiveness. Wisdom is a fountain of life to the one who has it, but folly is the punishment of fools. The mind of the wise makes their speech judicious and adds persuasiveness to their lips. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. All right, read through those.
Coming from the pastor. Because it was his mama.
All right, what you got?
My favorite is 20. Out of those, whoever gives, well, this one's, my version says, whoever gives heed to instruction prospers, and blessed is he who trusts in the Lord. I think that says that if we listen to the instructions and guidance from God, that we're going to prosper, not necessarily monetarily, but we'll be blessed.
Yes. Very much so.
That reminds me of what I heard that Bible, Bible, stands for, and that's basic instructions before leaving earth.
I like that.
It does provide guidance, tell us what we need to do.
I like the mind of the wise makes their speech judicious and adds persuasiveness to their lips.
A well thought argument.
Mhm.
usually can win, is the way I read that.
Well, but also you can lead people. Well, wisdom produces leadership because people will follow.
Mm-hmm.
You can persuade people to your side. So what else do we see in that one?
"24 reminds me of the saying, which I cannot remember right offhand, something about you can catch
More flies with
something.
honey.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Stephen.
Well, it also pleasant words, sweet to the soul and health to the body. I don't know how much health to the body honeycombs actually are. Maybe, I don't know.
They're very useful. If you've never had bees, but they're used in
Not intentionally.
numerous ways. Yeah, we raised bees for a while.
How do you get rid of them? Do they just like go away, or do you?
Ours died of the varroa mites. Infested the hives.
Oh,
Just took them over.
and the bees couldn't do anything about it?
Survived, no.
Is that what's killing off the bees worldwide?
I think now it's more people poisoning what they consider weeds, and the bees consider that food.
Okay.
Like the dandelions. Dandelions are good. I told Steve we need to put up a sign out by the road that says this is an experimental dandelion farm. But we do get a lot of bees through here, even though we're not raising them anymore. But the Carbonetas are raising bees.
Yeah.
Right.
And they live nearby.
Yeah.
Well, they're over in Quickwood, so they're not
okay.
Live down the street from me.
Yeah.
She had a lot of problems losing hives. I think she got about 24 hives now. But I have to be careful when I spray anything in the garden and do it at certain times of the night.
Yeah.
So our bees won't get in it.
Do you know that we had a bee? Wasn't even a honeybee. We had a bee in a bush in front of our house when the exterminator came, and they couldn't spray within like 5 or 10 feet of the bee. Was legal. Has it always been that way?
No.
So that must be something new. But yeah, they couldn't spray near the bee. They said we'll have to come back and get that.
Depends on what kind of bee it was.
Yeah, it depends on the
Like I
type.
said, it looked like just a regular bumblebee. It wasn't a honeybee. But I mean, they still are the ones that pollinate everything. So I mean, all of them are important.
Yeah.
But if they're a danger to people, then we've never had any problems killing them. I mean, yellow jackets are.
Oh no, they're mean.
And
No, they do no
bumblebees.
earthly good.
Bumblebees also nest in the ground. So, I don't know what type of bee it was, but
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but bumblebees may nest in the ground, but they don't swarm you and kill you. I mean,
it
Not-
depends on the time of the year and what they're up to.
well, you would know more about that than I do.
They
Yes.
will chase you.
Yeah, I'll never forget in my first church, I came in to the Sunday school classroom and I heard this vibrating sound and walked over to the windowsill and there were thousands of yellow jackets.
Yep.
And they weren't flying around the room at all. They were just on the windowsill, which I guess was their nest. What they had done is they went underground and then came up through the brick.
Yes. There was an exit.
Yeah. And then like for them, they were still underground.
Right.
And so
I've seen them a lot.
thankfully I had enough farmers around that knew what to do with it. I killed the ones inside and then they went at night and poured gas in the hole,
Mhm.
which I'm
That's
sure is a
great.
great thing to do under a building.
Yeah.
But-
that's dangerous.
Dangerous.
Well, they were also firefighters. They knew what they were doing.
That's it. Start a fire and put it out.
But yeah, I mean, there were quite a few stories of them on their tractors riding through fields and all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
getting
Oh, yeah.
swarmed because yellow jackets, they don't play.
No, they're just mean.
Well, let's move on to evil fire on the lips in 25 through 30. Guess this is the opposite of what we just heard. Sometimes there is a way that seems to be right, but in the end, it is the way to death. The appetite of workers works for them. Their hunger urges them on. Scoundrels concoct evil, and their speech is like a scorching fire. A perverse person spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends. The violent entice their neighbors and lead them in a way that is not good. One who winks the eye plans perverse things. One who compresses the lips brings evil to pass. So read through those really quickly, and then we'll chat about them.
You got to meet you go at 12:30. He told me his name.
Read your shirt.
Yeah. That's it. I'll see him in the back.
Mhm.
All right. Which one of those do you like? I'm trying to get my stand goal, just so y'all know.
Well, I think it's the definition of a bad leader.
All of them together, you say? Or one in
Um,
particular?
Not 26, but definitely to me, 27 through 30 are.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, very much so. Scoundrels concoct evil in their speeches like scorching fire. A whisper separates close friends.
Mm-hmm.
Rumors,
Yep.
spreading secrets, spreading lies.
If you want to see that in action, get a group of middle school girls together.
Or a
I
kitchen
raised
full
two.
of women.
Yeah.
I raised two of them, I know. But yeah.
And there are some people that just delight in spreading rumors and telling things that are going to divide people.
Yes. Yes.
The pot stirrers.
Oh Lord,
Yeah.
yes.
The truth ain't in them.
Mm.
Someone said that there's a movie. They said the truth ain't in them.
Right.
Tell some man lies and the truth ain't there.
Truth's not there.
And when you tell them the truth, they don't understand it.
What was that guy's name? David something that worked for us. Phew. He was a piece of work.
Did he like to spread rumors and lies?
No, he couldn't tell the truth. Didn't know what truth was. Never met it.
I had a friend in college that seemed to it's like he delighted in the like just lies. You know, it was like he lied even when he didn't need to.
Well, this guy did too. Yeah. Had to leave. Had to let him leave.
And it makes no sense. I mean, it's like, and some of his lies were spectacular. I mean, like, and you know, that, like, you know, on that beer commercial, the most interesting man in the world. If you believed what this guy said, he was the most interesting man in the world, but he was full of crap. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
and everybody kind of knew it, but I mean, it was like, wow, you're incredible. Why are you here? Be in Hollywood or, you know, New York or Washington or something.
What I couldn't get over is this guy would use us as a reference. Come on.
After you fired him?
Huh? Yes. Well,
Not good.
it wasn't. I don't know whether you ever find another job or not. Not my problem.
Well, maybe one of these days he'll wake up and not use y'all as a reference.
He doesn't anymore.
All right, well, let's close out with the last three verses: patience, reverence, and endurance. Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. One who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and one whose temper is controlled than one who captures a city. The lot is cast into the lap, but the decision is the Lord's alone.
Amen.
Mhm.
All right, what's your favorite one of those?
Well, the one that applies to everybody but you, Stephen, is
Well,
number 31.
let's not
I
be,
like that.
let's not, that, not so fast.
Yeah, if you sit behind him, you can see a few.
Yeah, it's not,
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
ain't caught up with you, but yeah, I mean, there's some right there.
Okay.
And if the light hits it just
So-
right, it
so
looks
you're
almost
getting
all
there.
gray.
What?
when the light hits it, sometimes it looks all gray.
Oh, great.
Well, I've got it.
Well, yeah, you have since you were what, 30?
I started graying when I was pregnant with your brother at 26. I blame this on him.
He started, yeah, but you can blame it on him, but let's all be honest on why it continued more and more. I don't
You
think it
think
was
you were the
him.
reason it continued?
I'm guessing. I don't think it was him.
Well, I had gray hair at 18. So
Oh my goodness.
yes, I did. Not a lot, but I had gray hair by the time I was 18, salt and pepper by mid-20s.
Mm.
Well, I started out, I grayed right through my swish right here. That's where I grayed first. And people thought I had it dyed that way.
Nowadays, people do have it dyed that way.
Mhm.
Well, God did it for me.
You were just before your time. All right. Anything else in there?
Well, verse 32 is a very important one.
Say more.
Well, if people that fly off the handle, which I can have been known to do, don't accomplish as much as those who think about it and then come up with a way to say what they want to say without being mean and nasty about it or using loud words.
Sometimes. All right, folks. Well, that is all for 16. We shall be together again next week. And so if you don't have any questions, comments, or complaints, we shall call it a day.
Sounds good.
Y'all take care. See some of you tonight.
When are you and Sarah meeting?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, thank you.
But the agenda for that should be very different. I mean, you can send normally, but I've told Sarah today, and that's about to cut off. I've told Sarah today, basically what we'll do on Wednesday is we'll meet with James, and then anything after that that is of importance, if anything needs to be discussed, then we'll discuss it as a normal council meeting. But there's no reason to go through every nook and cranny of
Right.
of
the
all the
survey.
report, of all the reports or anything like that. I don't think.
No, but we need to get back to property too.
Yeah. Well,
I'll send it to you.
well, here I was at property on Thursday,
Uh-huh.
and here's what's going on, and Ken can tell us this. Right now, Verizon is coming on to our land to check it out.
Right.
And Glenn said, and this came out of Glenn Clamp's mouth, there's no reason for there to be any real discussion at this point, because Verizon could come back and say no, and then we've wasted our time.
Right. Okay.
So there, I mean, if Glenn still wants to come, that's fine or whatever. But as I heard it from him, I don't think now's the right time. I mean, just say they're going to come onto the property to research this, and
Okay, so
then we'll talk about it.
Ken can bring that out.
Yeah,
without
yeah,
having it on the agenda.
right. And Hugh was there, and Hugh wasn't there. Neither was Bradley. I was there, and Ken was there. So, I mean, it's like I said, at this point, there's no real reason to even debate it.
Okay.
Because it may end up, there's nothing to debate. And so and I like that line of thinking, quite honestly.
Right.
Why ruffle feathers if there's no reason to ruffle feathers?
Right. Well, I've been real negligent with the minutes this time. I just got too many irons in the fire, but
It happens.
I'll get those, and then I'll get
Well, you got a little extra time.
just a draft agenda.
Yeah.
to
Yeah. I mean, really, just scribble something out. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing. I mean, like I said, and at this time, I don't even know how you would do it, because it would be, just meeting with Pastor James and then items to be brought before council. And unless you know of any, that's all, in my opinion, that's all needs to be on the agenda.
Okay.
I mean, the reports will just, you could say reports, and just we'll have Sarah say, are there any questions about any of the reports?
Right. Okay.
So people need to make sure they've read them. But this thing with James, I don't see it being short.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we get to our council part, we ain't going to be up for doing much more.
Right.
So,
Okay. I'll draft it then.
all right. Thanks, Margaret. Have a good one.